Okay. You should be able to see me at least now. Let me know if you can hear me as well. All good? Perfect. Okay. So first of all, thank you all for joining. Really appreciate the turnout. Always good to see people interested. To give you a quick coverage of what today's session will involve, we will be going over the details for the data analytics bootcamp. Just ignore that date, as well as the application process. So I will go ahead and move forward so you can see here a little bit more. So you'll have a quick introduction into who we are at Generation, the insight into the data analytics bootcamp itself, and what the curriculum looks like for that, and again, how you will go through the next stages in the application. So go ahead and start. So who are Generation? So Generation is a non-profit organization that was launched in 2015 with the goal of training and placing learners into life-changing careers that would otherwise be inaccessible. So our mission really is to help those applicants with barriers where maybe there are careers such as data analytics where they've had an interest, but up until this point, it's just not been accessible, whether it's been the lack of access to traditional educational routes, access to further training. Maybe a lot of applicants will have come from outside of the UK and their degrees might not be recognized. So those are the people we look to support. So you can see we're active in 336 cities across 17 countries. And to date, we've helped place 91,000 plus graduates into roles across 3,000 employer partners. So you can kind of see the stats there for the increase in student income after Generation versus before has been around 3 to 4%. And that's for the starting roles. The idea here is we're not just training you for, we're essentially training you for career paths where you can continue growing and developing even after you finish with us. So where do our Generation graduates work? As mentioned, we've placed with over 2,000 employer partners, and in the UK, that number is around 200. And you can see some of the companies in which we've supported graduates getting placed into. So Gymshark, PlayStation, Financial Times, Accenture, Salesforce, all of these companies we have relationships with, and we have a great team that works to secure new relationships, continue growing the ones that are there. So this is really a program that has been recognized by some pretty substantial companies, and our goal here is to ensure that for these kind of boot camps, the employers are just as confident that they are getting a quality employee from the process as well. It kind of shows you that the skills you learn are very much applicable to a wide array of sectors and roles across those sectors. So for Generation UK and Ireland, these are the regions we support. So we're based around Greater Manchester, Scotland, Ireland, Yorkshire, West Midlands, and London. Those are predominantly the hubs that we service. And within those hubs, we will, so for example, Yorkshire, we might cover Leeds as well as the Greater Leeds area and York. Same with the West Midlands, we cover Birmingham and the Greater Birmingham area. So that's kind of where we are rooted here today. For the Data Analytics Bootcamp, so has a start date of the 27th of May. And it is a full-time boot camp running for 11 weeks from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It takes place completely online, remotely. So all of our applicants will be doing the boot camp from home, but you'll still have a live lecturer. So we work with lecturers who have previous experience in the sectors that they are representing, so that you know that you are learning skills that are relatable and up to date for the role you are learning. So in this case, for data analytics, you'll be learning from someone who has experience working within data analytics, and that's to ensure that after finishing the 11 weeks, you have a strong foundation and are equipped to take on the responsibilities that the roles currently demand. The cost is, of course, free of charge for all of our applicants. We work with a number of funding partners to ensure that you don't have to pay anything out of pocket, because we recognize cost is one of the biggest barriers graduates or applicants have to getting into these courses. So you don't pay anything for the duration of the boot camp or any of the additional employment support we offer after graduating. And for those applicants who might be worried that, it's a remote boot camp, that they don't have the necessary equipment to do it from home, we will also support you by providing whatever equipment you may need, whether it's a laptop, an internet dongle to get a stable internet connection, or a webcam so that you can participate in the group work. So again, just covering some of the benefits, the free training and qualification. For data analytics, we will cover the cost of doing a Microsoft Power Platforms certification. So usually I think that's around £79, and that's provided free of charge for you. You don't have to pay for that. You get online learning with a live instructor, as I've already explained. One-to-one mentoring. So we have a great inclusion team of learning progress managers who work alongside applicants while they're on program. And that's to ensure that at every stage of the bootcamp, you feel like you have the adequate support and that we are meeting your needs. We kind of pride ourselves as an organization in being able to support a diverse array of applicants. And part of that is through this one-to-one mentoring. Connecting with employers, as mentioned, we have a placement team who work in your local areas to connect you to employers following graduation. You'll have a 6-month placement period after you finish the 11-week boot camp, where for 6 months you have support with getting to meet employers, getting set up with interviews, preparing for those interviews, preparing your CV. Every facet of the job application process you will have support with for a full 6 months. And currently, we want our applicants to know that the expectation here is that we don't just bring you on for 11 weeks, teach you some things, and then throw you out the door. We will continue working closely with you, and generally the closer and more committed applicants are during this placement phase, the more successful we've seen them in finding roles and following the graduation. And of course, if you are currently receiving any kind of unemployment benefit like JSA, Universal Credit, you will continue to earn that even on boot camp. So you have that safety net to fall on. You won't get that taken away from you for doing the boot camp, and you'll still have that during the placement phase as well. So you kind of have that assurance that you, at least while you're earning your unemployment benefits, you can still be upskilling and training for potentially what we hope is a role that you can then go on to grow into a long and stable career path. So with that in mind, there are some eligibility criteria to ensure that you can access the funding. So for this particular bootcamp, you need to have been aged 19 and over as of August of last year. You need to be based in Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham. It's open to all genders in those regions, in West Yorkshire and West Midlands. And if you have any doubts about that, we can talk to you after this to ensure that we're covering everything. And we will also reach out to you in email if there's any follow-up that we think needs to be done. You need to be resident in the UK or the European Economic Area for 3 years. Not currently in education, training, or work. If you're on a 0 hours contract or part-time contract up to 16 hours, it's fine, as long as it's not clashing with your full-time boot camp, so Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. If you're working outside of those hours, that's completely fine. And if you're on a fixed-term contract that is ending before the boot camp starts, that's also fine. We can work with you then. You need to have the legal right to work and live in the UK, and of course be available for the full 11 weeks and ready to start a full-time job following. Those are the main requirements. Some visas we currently can't support. So off the top of my head, student visas, graduate visas, skilled worker visas, we can't currently support. And the reason for that is, as an organization, we are unable to provide the sponsorship needed for those visas to work. So we don't want you to bring you on boot camp if we don't believe that there's a good chance that we can place you following the boot camp. You can see here the number of global data generated annually. And what this is to demonstrate is that this is a growing field. So we continue to see more and more businesses of all sizes, from your small local businesses to your large multinational conglomerates, more and more embracing data-driven processes. So this is definitely a sector which we continue to see growth every day. And this is hopefully an indication to you as a graduate that this is a role where not only is there the work is there now, but hopefully, and looking at the data here, there will continue to be work and opportunities to grow in that sector. So this is a really good use case for us to show that. Data analytics is big business, and it looks to continue to be big business. We're not seeing businesses move away from data. If anything, they're embracing it more and more. So what does a data analyst actually do? You've seen how the data is growing, and in trying to keep up with this demand, we're finding that there's a shortage of people with the skills to deal with this, which is why we've come up with this boot camp. So average starting salary is around 24K, and those roles do tend to grow exponentially as you progress up the rung. And there's a lot of opportunities to progress. It's a skill set that's, as we showed, very in demand, and being used in all sorts of fields. So even if you think, there's your obvious tech fields, so companies like Microsoft, IBM, ARM, that kind of thing. Obviously, they use data, but even your supermarkets, Tesco's will have dedicated data people to track the spendings and performance of certain products, and even internal data. So if a business is operating, then there's a chance that they're doing data analytics in some regard or to some extent. So within the role itself, you will be identifying, collecting, and moving data, finding and spotting issues with that data, and applying techniques to clean and sort it. So you might have a large data set, which could have duplicates, it could have some missing information, and your role is to kind of sift through that and make sure that when it comes to a place where the data is usable, that all those things have been spotted and addressed. You'll be using tools such as Excel, Power BI, and more to perform calculations and look for patterns in the data, and then developing graphs, dashboards, automated reports to display the analysis and key insights. And with all this, once you've done all this with the data, you then have a chance to present your findings to the business and help to add value. So the idea is that the data, by looking at the data, we can figure out how best the business can kind of grow and develop. So you're playing a key role in this, in essentially navigating which direction these businesses are going with. So you'll get to learn a little bit of coding and programming on the bootcamp. So SQL and Python are the primary languages in data analytics. and we'll teach you the fundamentals of that and provide you with resources to continue growing those abilities, and working with teammates, clients across various scopes to understand their needs and help them address their issues through data. And you got kind of see there a huge database, billions of pieces of information. Your job is essentially to make that data as accessible as possible. So what the role fits in data teams. So there's various roles in data. So your data scientists, they're performing advanced analytics to extract value from data. This is where you see more coding heavy. They are implementing solutions through extensive use of coding to automate. And this is really more of a, I would say, advanced role where you are doing, where you're actually going through it and doing software development, right? Data engineer, managing the flow of data from multiple sources and sets up systems to collect this. So these are the people who work on the systems that you will be using so you might sift through the data. These are the guys who build the tools to gather that data in the first place. And then there would be you, the data analyst, who is maximizing the value of that data through visualization and reporting. So if you think of data engineer as kind of casting a net and getting that data, you're then sifting through it and finding the valuable stuff that the business can then use. And you can see at the bottom some additional roles that you might get into. So you might start as a data analyst, but there's plenty of different adjacent roles and opportunities to climb. So insight analysts, business intelligence analysts, data modelers, system analysts. As we say, it's a diverse field. It continues to grow. And if you're truly interested and committed, then there's a lot of opportunities to continue developing in the future. And here you get to see a little bit more about the progression routes. So learning the core skills and building a professional portfolio, that's where we support you. And then during the placement phase, helping to hopefully land you in your first job as a junior data analyst. And then here you see it kind of splinters off, right? So one of the things we teach on bootcamp is key mindsets. And one of those mindsets is future orientation, knowing what opportunities are available to you to grow and to continue growing. And as you see here, from junior data analyst, you can continue down that path and progress to mid-level or senior roles and continue climbing that seniority ladder. You can look to move into a specialist role, so working in specific sectors like financial analyst, healthcare data analyst, or you can, if you're really into the more technical aspect of the role, you can look to become a data scientist. And then all these roles obviously have their own progression opportunities within them. And you can see there, entry level, as we mentioned, is around 24 to 30K. Within 2 to 3 years, we find graduates typically manage to grow into roles that are paying 30 to 35K. And then down the line, with more and more experience, you're looking at 40 upwards to 50K within the 5 to 9 year range. So for the motivated individual, this is a great career path to where you know that there's not only that security, but there's that opportunity to keep growing as a person, right? I think one of the key things we find a lot of applicants is that they're really dedicated people. They want to learn, they want to grow, they want to have a fulfilling job where these opportunities are present. And this is definitely a great sector for that. So with that all in mind, what does life in the classroom look like? So what does the actual boot camp look like? So here you can see a typical day in our classroom. So around 8:45, you're logging in. If for whatever reason you can't make it that day, letting us know that you can't make it. At 9, you'll join the Teams room where you'll be with all the other people that are on the boot camp and the instructor. You'll be introduced to the technical topic for that day. The instructor will present that and give it an overview. Around 10:30, you'll get the break. At 11, you'll actually start applying those skills. You'll be moved into breakout rooms, so broken up into various groups where you'll get to do exercises to start actually putting into practice these concepts that you're being introduced to. 12:30, you break for lunch. After you come back from lunch is where we talk a little bit about that behavioral skills and mindset. So it's not just having the skills needed for the role, it's also having the behavior and mindset to navigate that role, because we recognize for a lot of our applicants, it is a new environment, and we want to make sure you're as best equipped as possible to navigate that environment. So you're not feeling like you're out of place, you feel confident, you feel like you're ready to be supporting a team. The employability session, CV, interviews, job applications afterwards. So that's where we help you with the preparation for when you actually go for these roles. At 4 p.m., you'll do some daily reflections, go over everything that's happened that day, and we can address where you feel strongest, where you feel like you need the most support, that kind of stuff. And then from 4:30, you get your one-to-one support from the instructor, ready to finish at 5. So your learning experience, as we mentioned, these are the 3 kind of pillars that our boot camps are built on. So the behaviors, communication, proactiveness, teamwork. Yeah, so Sakshi, thank you for that message. We will be recording the stream, and afterwards I will send it out to everyone. So you'll all have a copy of this as well, so you can go over it yourselves in your own time, because I do recognize there's a lot of information here, so no worries there. The other pillars, mindset, so personal responsibility, knowing a lot of these roles are very independent. You're kind of given a piece of work and left to do it in your own time. And with that comes a certain level of personal responsibility, which we help to instill. The growth mindset, so having the mindset that, okay, you're going to be a data analyst, but what's next for you, right? We want the applicants to kind of aspire to continue growing in their field. And with that comes the future orientation I mentioned, knowing what opportunities are out there, what areas you're kind of developing and growing interest in, and if you wanted to continue going in that direction, how would you go about doing it? And finally, the persistence, right? So with all this being said, 11 weeks for a boot camp, it's quite intensive. It's a lot to learn. Applicants need to be persistent, and we instill that. And then it's the same with applying for jobs. Applying for jobs can be quite a daunting task. And while you have that great support from the placement team, there is still important to have a persistent mindset and knowing that it's about the work you put in. The more work you put in, the more committed, the better the outcomes. And then finally, the technical skills. So that data analysis fundamentals, programming languages, SQL and Python, as I mentioned. Overview of the data pipeline, data analysis and visualization testing, and project management. And of course, don't worry if some of these terms aren't familiar to you at this stage. The bootcamp is there to help you learn all of these things. So here's the introduction to the curriculum, and here you can see, and I'll just leave it on this for a moment so you can all see what the curriculum looks like. You've got the introduction to the role, letting you know what does it mean to be a data analyst, right, in more detail. What are the key skills required to be a data analyst, and how is the curriculum going to help you get to that point? Talking over the fundamentals, so how to explore and analyze data with Excel, understanding, extracting, transforming, and loading, and the journey of data. So from once you get it to when you're delivering it for its intended purpose, what happens in between there. An introduction to databases and SQL, designing databases and building interrelationships between databases. Again, programming language side of it, the overview of the data pipeline, so what comes before analysis and what comes after. Data analysis and visualization, so actually putting that in a way that you can visualize the data, that it's not just a huge chunk of numbers and words in a way that's more presentable and readable. And then, as mentioned here, the Microsoft Power Platform fundamentals. Microsoft Power Platform is a series of tools that is it's kind of makes up the core of your data analytics tool set. So Power BI being at the center of that, Power Automate, all this kind of stuff. And as I mentioned, you will get the opportunity to take that assessment and gain that qualification free of cost. Testing, and then finally the project management side of it. So actually the successful skills you need to have to manage those tasks that you'll actually get. So this is a little bit more about that industry recognized qualification we mentioned. So the Power Platform allows data analysts to automate processes, build solutions, and analyze data. And we'll cover the topics for the certification, which will set you up for the first data analyst role and give you a competitive edge in interviews. So again, at no cost to you, it usually would cost £74, but this is provided free of cost as part of the boot camp. And this is a great industry recognized certification that will allow you to, again, have that edge in interviews, right? If you come to an interview, say, I've done the boot camp, but I also have this. Hey, Yolanda. At the moment, we currently we're not able to provide any evening boot camps. Simple case is that the demand at the moment for the evening boot camps isn't there. And also all of our tutors are kind of contracted between the 9 to 5. So unfortunately, at this time, that's not a possibility. That being said, we run these boot camps throughout the year. So if there comes a time later in the year where you find that maybe you have the time to go and participate in that 9 to 5 schedule, then you'll still have the opportunity to apply then. And just to cover a little bit more, so the exam takes an hour and will test your capabilities across those applications. So Power BI, that's your main data visualization tool, helps you build graphs, dashboards, and analyze that data. Power Apps to create internal business applications without code. Power Automate to automate workflows and operations. So this will save you a lot of time. Instead of having to do something manually 100 times, you can just build the automation once and just run it every time you need it. And the virtual agents. So these are chatbots. I'm sure everyone here at some point has heard about AI tools, whether, ChatGPT, that kind of stuff. And we are finding more and more that these tools are super relevant in this field. And as you can see, the Power Platform Fundamentals covers that as well. So again, giving you that cutting edge, having one of the best industry recognized qualifications. Hey, Mustafa. So for the Python quiz or the logic task on the application process, those are there to essentially, as mentioned, you'll do a little bit of Python. The logic is obviously super important for a role as logic-oriented as this. We have designed it so it's accessible to those who have no previous experience. We can provide resources as well to applicants to access that a little bit better, and I can post that in the chat now for everyone to have. So the ones we recognize or that we recommend and would encourage all applicants to check out because it's a great resource is W3 Schools. This should be enough to get you to a level where you can do well in the Python quiz. To answer your question outright, so it is an indication for us of how suitable an applicant may be on the program. Of course, we recognize that people have no prior experience, but ideally they can get to a point where they can show that they at least have that drive to learn Python, and it is something that we take into consideration when we're kind of going into the selection. We want to make sure, again, that if we bring you onto the boot camp, we're confident that you can go through the boot camp and come out the other end equipped to jump into a role. Because on the one hand, it would suck to, bring you on and then say, actually, we can't find you a role because your Python skills just aren't where we need them to be. And this is something we recognize at the start. At that point, we're just wasting your time, which obviously is not something we want to do ever. So hopefully that answers a little bit of that. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the mentoring support. So this is a big draw for our applicants when coming on the bootcamp. As I mentioned, we have an incredible team of individuals who support applicants throughout the bootcamp to ensure that whatever needs you may have feel like they're being met, and that you don't have any external circumstances that we could potentially support with. If you do okay on the Python exam and not on the other exam, it tends to balance itself out. If we identify with applicants that maybe they did strongly on one exam and the other exam is a little bit weaker, we'll reach out to you and give you the opportunity to retake that second exam. And we'll see kind of where we land there. But we would be reaching out to you anyway to let you know, so you'll have that opportunity. So one-to-one mentoring support is what it says. Professional mentors specialize in supporting adult learning experiences, motivation and goal setting, developing your employability skills, pastoral care and well-being, tailored and individual support. So you'll get a chance to meet with one of these mentors before the bootcamp starts and before we've made our selection. And this will be discuss the support needs that you may have. So for any applicant, this could look completely different. Some of our applicants have support needs relating to learning difficulties. Some of our applicants have support needs relating to maybe they have dependents at home. So all of this is discussed to make sure that we have a good idea of if you were to be on boot camp, what is the support we can offer you to make sure that you have the best chance to complete that program and minimize any potential outside factors. During the bootcamp phase, you'll have dedicated one-to-one sessions regularly. You'll be setting personal goals and having that support to empower you to reach your goals. No worries, Rishka. I will take a look after this session, and then I'll be in touch to let you know what that issue is. It's usually fairly straightforward, but I will have a look after we're done. And they also provide signposting services. If we think there's beneficial that there's a service that would benefit you in being your best, we can provide you with those resources. And then during the placement phase, you'll continue having that support. They'll support you getting ready for interviews, building your confidence, and continuing to give you group and one-to-one sessions. Feedback for the higher view interviews, Labour, we are trying to do it usually within the week they're submitted at the minute. At the minute we are trying to get through them. But if you haven't heard from us, no worries. It's just it's a continuing process, and if we need anything else from you, we'll let you know. But it's very early on in the process at the minute anyway, so we are ideally going to have most of them reviewed within the next couple of weeks. And gathering family, lecture time is 9 to 5, but can you take any late night shift job, for example, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.? So this is a tricky one. If ultimately we don't want to encourage anyone to put that kind of stress on themselves, right? 9 to 5 is already a full day. To then have to do a 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift just to be up at 9 again. So that's 3 hours. That's something that we can't really encourage. We would say if it's 1 or 2 days, we can maybe work around it. But if it's a regular thing, then our advice is always to look forward into the future when there are other bootcamp opportunities where that time schedule may fit you better. Again, It's an intensive boot camp, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. If you're having to join after a 8-hour night shift, it's not setting you up for success, right? It's kind of it's also a point of concern for us because we don't want anyone exerting themselves for an opportunity to be on this boot camp. We understand the opportunity is great, but also we kind of have a care of duty for all our learners to make sure that, again, we're supporting them as best as we can. So the kind of support you'll get: if you're ill, we can discuss a catch-up plan with your mentor and instructor. Materials are online for you to catch up. Financial support, you can continue to receive any benefits as mentioned, and the mentor can support you in applying for additional benefits if we find those are available. And again, if you don't have a laptop or Wi-Fi or a comfortable working environment, we can help set you up with laptop and Wi-Fi. We lend that, and once you finish the boot camp, you just send that back. So the 6-month placement phase that I mentioned earlier, placement phase is where you're actually going to be going out there into the job market and applying for the roles. So self-generation graduates start their careers through 2 routes: a self-application, so you find a role that you think, this role looks good, it's for a junior data analyst, I'm confident, I'm going to apply for it. A lot of applicants go through there. There's also generation sourced opportunities. So as I mentioned earlier, our placement team comes to you and they say, we've got an employer partner, they're looking for 3 data analysts, and we think that it'd be a good opportunity for you to apply. And that's another way that graduates have found roles. So throughout the 6-month placement phase, it'll be ideally a mix of these two. You'll go out there, have that self-sufficiency to apply to roles, but you'll also be working with our placement team to find those sourced opportunities and prepare for applying for those. So the commitment during the placement phase is that you will be the driving force of your job search and apply for generation opportunities as well as self-applying. So we're here to support you, of course, but ultimately the drive for finding a role is with you ultimately. As I mentioned, the more committed you are to this stage, generally the more successful we've seen graduates be. So you'll have that support from us, but the biggest support you can have is just in yourself, having that confidence, going out there, applying regularly, that kind of stuff. Excellent attendance is a key indicator of the motivation. So if you're attending all your scheduled sessions and check-ins, staying engaged and responsive to all messages, then generally that means you're really gunning for that role. And it means our placement team knows that when we're supporting you, that reflects also on how you'll be in the actual role itself, right? So we can go to interviewers and say, we've got this applicant, they've been great, they've been on the ball, every session they're there, they're replying to us within the day, they're committed, and that looks good for you, right? And then finally, the expectations, be open to relevant roles within commutable distance and put childcare or visa arrangements in place to accommodate a full-time role. Give advance notice of any interviews so we can make time to support you. So if you apply for a role on your own and you hear back that they want to interview you, then let us know, right? Because we can still support you with that. Even if you're the one applying, we can still help you with the preparation, practice for the interview, make sure your CV has everything you need on there. And then tell us when you've secured a role. This supports our work. As we mentioned, we've placed so many people and it's made such a difference that your stories will help other people like you in the future, right? One of the reasons that I work a generation is because at a stage in my life, I felt a little bit lost. I wasn't sure what direction to take. I hadn't gone to uni. I was kind of looking around and thinking, what do I want to do? What opportunities are there for me? So it's important for me to now think, I managed to find my way. If I can help other people find their way as well, even better, right? it's great to kind of build a community around this idea. Okay. Reham, if you didn't do well on the Python quiz, as I mentioned earlier, we will review your Python and your logic task. If we find that it's at a stage where maybe you underperformed a little bit, but with a little bit of work, you could probably get there, we will reach out and provide you with the opportunity to retake that, and hopefully from there be in a supportable place. That being said, if it's a case where it's really not serviceable, like we're not certain that we can support with those scores, then we will flag you to other relevant providers, resources where you can improve your Python skills, your logic skills, and you'll have the opportunity to reapply in the future when you feel more comfortable with those. But generally, if we believe we can support you with that, we reach out to let you know and work with you. And Emma, how much are we able to help create an industry-relevant CV? So you'll have a lot of support in this regard from the placement team. This is one of the key areas where we really work with applicants to kind of iterate. So sit down, go through your CV, go off what we know about the current job market, nail those key things in the CV to make sure that you look as best as you can. You go to an interview and it's unsuccessful, then we'll talk with the employer. We'll get feedback, figure out, okay, where are we lacking in that CV, and we'll continue iterating until it's at a place where we feel confident that you're competitive within that industry, right? Okay, so we're coming up towards the end of the presentation here, so I'm just going to give some, let you know what the next steps are in the application. So everyone, if you haven't done so already, so one of the important things is applying your eligibility documents. This is where we can check whether you are, you qualify for the funding, right? Because again, we don't want to waste people's time. So here you can see the documents that we accept. So for right to work, showing that you have the right to work in the UK, British or Irish passport, birth certificate, and national insurance number. If you don't have either of those, then we ask for a share code that just you can get from the Gov.uk website, and that just lets us check the status of your visa. And I believe the residence cards have now been phased out, so those are no longer included. In their place, it would just be a share code, which I think should be fairly straightforward. And then for proof of underemployment, this is just something that shows us that you fall under that. So universal credit statement, latest bank statement. If you've been working and you've recently been made redundant, like a P45, if you're on a 0-hour contract, just a copy of your contract, that kind of thing. Gathering family, if you have some experience in project management, can you combine data analyst with project management to enhance your chance of getting a job? That's a good question. So generally, we would review what that level of project management looks like, right? As I mentioned at the start, ideally, the ideal applicant on this bootcamp is someone who is trying to get into those roles. For us, if someone has a lot of recent experience in something like project management, that's not necessarily something that we can support, because that person has already had the experience working in the tech sector, right? They don't necessarily need the additional upskilling, because that's not what this bootcamp's about. It's more about getting the foundational skills to access the tech sector for the first time. That being said, if you have a little bit of project management skills, then I don't see why you wouldn't be able to combine it with data analytics. Project management is a core facet of some of the roles that we see. So it's certainly useful to have. Ryan, would it be possible to take a couple of hours out a week in order to complete driving lessons for a driving license and then catching up in our own time outside the 9 to 5? So the full-time nature of the boot camp means that missing out on a couple of hours each week is actually not currently feasible. And that also comes down to funding. We need to make sure that applicants are committed to being there as often as possible. As mentioned previously, though, these boot camps run throughout the year. There'll be more opportunities in the future to apply. So if once you do get your driving license, you can always reapply. And then when you have the opportunity to be in the boot camp full time, hopefully that answers that. Wish we could have more flexibility in that regard, but it just comes down to funding as well as the curriculum not really allowing for it. So after completing this course, you guys will help us in finding placements or jobs, or do we have to do it by ourselves? We will help you, so we'll support you. As mentioned in the previous slides, it's kind of a mixture of both. So we work with the applicants to prepare for every facet of job applications, preparing for interviews, preparing your CV, all of that stuff. During that time, you will still be encouraged to apply for roles on your own because ultimately that shows drive and it helps you. But also our placement team will bring sourced opportunities for you. So it'll be a combination of both applying for your own roles and also applying for roles that we bring to you. And Sebastian, I can get you a link to the application portal. I will post that there at the end of the session. So just one. So the other step is once your application has been reviewed by our team, there's kind of a hold after you've submitted your documents and done your tasks. Once we've reviewed it, if we are confident that you could potentially be a good applicant and do well in the boot camp, we will then reach out to you to invite you to a follow-up interview. So this is a higher view. What that is, it's an online interview where you get given 6 questions and you just record your response to each question. You'll get multiple attempts, and when you're happy, you can submit them. And the benefits here is that you can prep in as much detail as you want, feel fully prepared, take the time to think about your answers. We usually advise giving each answer around 3 minutes to make sure that you're being thorough. And it's flexible, right? We can work around your schedule. You can do it in whatever time works best for you. So here are some recaps. I think my camera has just given out. There we go. Here's some recaps. So your enthusiasm for the course, motivation is key. If you're enthusiastic about the course, you understand the end role, you've looked into it, and you're certain this is for you, and you've already explored ways to look into it before this, that's always a good indicator. Once you've completed those Python and logic tasks, you're showing us you're committed to continue learning, and you'll get all these opportunities for you. And as it says there, just a little line, we're looking for potential over perfection. So it's not necessarily about scoring 100 on the Python task and Python and the logic task. As long as you come to that interview and you show you're dedicated, you're motivated, and you want to continue learning, then that's what we look for. We look for people who are working hard to achieve their goals, because those are the ones we usually see succeed. And I think that is everything. So thank you all again for coming. We really appreciate it. I'm going to be sticking around now for the next 5 to 10 minutes or however long it takes to answer questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask now. Sebastian, I will get that link for you. So that should be the link to access the application. Okay, so let me just see this. Sakshi, a driving license is not a necessary thing for this bootcamp or for the role, as long as you live within a commutable distance of those locations we spoke about before. That's completely fine. Since our teams are based locally, we look for opportunities that are within 30 to 60 minutes of commuting for you. So as long as you can commute, public transport's completely fine. Driving license is not necessary. And for the bootcamp side of it, it takes place remotely, so you'd be accessing that from home. Gathering family, you can use the same YouTube link to watch the recording of this session over and over again, and I will also be sending out the link again to everyone later today. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, then once again, thank you all for joining. You've got an email there to reach out to us, dataanalytics@generation.org, if you do come up with anything later on. Otherwise, wish everyone a lovely week and a lovely weekend. Rashika, it's an online class. Bootcamp takes place online. You can access it from home.